Hi, Total Recapped here. Today, we will be going through the events of a 2016 American superhero film, X-Men Apocalypse. Now let's get right into the movie. The story unfolds in the Nile Valley in 3600 BC. The people of Egypt chant En-Sabah-Nur, the name of a powerful being who is being carried to his pyramid by his four horsemen: pestilence, famine, death, and war. Everything has been set up to perform a ritual that will transfer En-Sabah-Nur's consciousness into the body of a mutant who has the regenerative ability to be considered immortal. Outside, some citizens of Egypt betray En-Sabah-Nur and send massive pillars sliding down into the pyramid to kill him and everyone inside. The horsemen fight back against the traitors as the pillars begin to destroy the pyramid and crush everyone. Death, in her last moments, protects the body by shielding it. However, she is also crushed like everyone else. The process is complete, but En-Sabah-Nur remains trapped beneath the rubble. Flash forward to Ohio in 1983. A high school class discusses how Eric Lensher, better known as Magneto, attacked the Peace Summit and the president, but was stopped by Raven Darkholme, who was under the alias of Mystique. Scott Summers has trouble with his eyes, and another student mistakes him for winking at his girlfriend. Scott asks his teacher for permission to go to the bathroom, and the other student follows him to beat him up. Scott locks himself into a bathroom stall to avoid the other student, but loses control and fires up a devastating beam, which throws the bully against the walls and causes significant damage to the school. Meanwhile, in West Berlin, a large audience gathers at a secret arena to watch mutants fight. Angel, a mutant with wings growing from his back, defeats his opponent and is presented with another one, who is brought to the ring in a cage. It is none other than Kurt Wagner, going as Nightcrawler, who can teleport anywhere within his sight. At first, he tries to evade Angel, but Angel tells him they both will be killed if they don't fight. Nightcrawler catches Angel off guard and throws him against the ring, which is electrified to burn his wings. Raven makes it in time and turns down the voltage, allowing the two fighters to escape. While Angel flies away, Nightcrawler is rescued by Raven herself, and they successfully escape. Eric Lensher, who is seen as a monster by humans, lives a normal life with his wife Magda and daughter Nina, and works for a metal foundry in Poland under the name Henryk Gorski. He sings Nina a bedtime lullaby, which was passed to him by his parents. He tells his daughter about his parents being taken away from him when he was small, and assures her that the same won't ever happen to her. Scott's brother Alex Summers takes him to Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters with a blindfold to prevent any accidents. Scott bumps into a girl named Jean Grey, a telepathic mutant, and they share a few words before Alex introduces Scott to Hank McCoy, Beast, now turned into a teacher. Together, the three visit Charles Xavier, and he greets Alex and his brother Scott. Charles asks Scott to take off his blindfold and shoot the target, assuring him that it is okay to do so. Scott does what he is asked to do and blasts a massive beam that cuts a tree in half, which Xavier claims to have been planted by his grandfather. Scott fears being expelled, but he manages to impress Charles and is enrolled in the school. In Cairo, Egypt, a CIA agent named Moira McTaggart follows a group of people with a similar mark on their necks to an underground chamber, where she finds them performing a ritual to wake En-Sabah-Nur from his eternal slumber. Moira luckily escapes before En-Sabah-Nur wakes up to cause an explosion, which triggers a massive earthquake worldwide and can be felt even at Eric's workplace, causing a large container of molten melt to fall on a coworker. But Eric saves him using his powers and questions his actions. At the school, Jean Grey foresees the chaos in the end of the world and tells Charles about it. She fears her powers, but Charles comforts her. With Hank's help, Charles uses Cerebro to find out where the tremors originated from, and there he sees Moira McTaggart, who once used to be his love interest. Eric and Magda prepare to abandon their town and leave to a place where no one knows Eric's real identity. When Magda goes to look for Nina, she finds her missing, and the couple look for her in the forest. The cops have Nina and they ask Eric about his real identity. To protect his family, Eric confesses that he is Magneto and asks the cops to take him in exchange for Nina's freedom. Nina yells at the cops to leave her father, and her voice makes the crows attack the cops. One officer with a bow and arrow accidentally releases it, killing Nina and Magda. Eric runs to his family and mourns their death. Angered by his family's death, he takes off Nina's necklace and uses it to kill all of the men. Back in Egypt, Apocalypse is now free to roam and explore the new world. He spots Aurora Monroe, mutant, stealing goods and money and escaping the sellers. When the sellers surround her, Apocalypse steps in, decimates 3 people's heads, and traps one inside the walls. Alex and Charles visit Moira McTaggart, and they question her about the incident in Egypt, but she is reluctant to answer since it's a piece of classified information. When she asks them how they got inside, Charles lies to her about having a 5-level clearance and can extract all the information they need. Aurora brings Apocalypse to her hideout and offers him food. Apocalypse uses the TV to learn the human language and everything about the new human world. He calls humans weak and false gods and believes that Earth needs to be cleansed. Aurora tells him that laws bind them, but he sweet-mouths her into following him and increases her mutant abilities exponentially. Meanwhile, Raven brings Nightcrawler to a mutant named Caliban, who is helping other mutants create fake IDs and passports. Caliban tells Raven about what happened with Eric Lensher, and she storms off with Nightcrawler. Back at the school, Hank prepares special glasses for Scott, keeping his powers limited and letting him see the world properly. His eyes get stuck on Jean and he reaches out to her. When other kids make fun of them, he thinks that he is a freak to them, but Jean tells him he isn't the only one who can't control his powers, and he isn't the biggest freak. Accompanied by Storm, Apocalypse reaches out to Caliban to find strong mutants, but he refuses to help them. Psylocke comes to examine the situation, and Apocalypse unlocks all of her powers, and she sides with him. They come across Angel, whose wings are burnt, and Psylocke tells the others to leave and look for more. Apocalypse refuses to leave and enhances Angel's abilities, providing him with a much deadlier pair of wings, and he starts following him. Raven and Nightcrawler reach Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, and a happy Hank greets them. At first he is surprised, but he welcomes the two. Nightcrawler is accompanied by a fellow student to Scott, and they all decide to see a mall since Nightcrawler doesn't know what one is. Hank asks Raven to convince Charles to form the X-Men, since he believes that the world needs them, but she tells him that she's here asking for help for Eric. Eric goes to his workplace and closes every door and machine, leaving no room for escape for the people present in the factory. He asks the people how it feels to lose someone you love the most, and comments that it'll be a pain that the people's families will live with for the rest of their lives. When he is about to kill everyone, Apocalypse teleports to his location with his followers to take Eric under his command. Eric tells him not to interfere or try to save anyone, but to his surprise, Apocalypse buries everyone present there in an instant. Apocalypse brings Eric to Auschwitz, where he first used his powers and lost his family, and encourages him to manipulate the metal in the earth and use his anger to fuel his energy. Eric begins to destroy the other buildings around him as Apocalypse vows to build a better world. The incident in Poland has made it to the news, and Peter Maximoff, better known as Quicksilver, watches the news. When his mother comes to check up on him, he switches the channel and pretends to be playing video games, but his mother knows about him watching the news and more specifically, watching Eric, and warns him not to go after him. Charles and Alex, along with Moira, come back to the school, and Charles is surprised to see Raven. When Raven greets Moira, she is surprised to see that she doesn't remember her, and Charles tells Raven that he wiped Moira's memories when she left. Raven tells him about Eric's situation, and they use Cerebro to locate him. When Charles finds Eric, he tries to convince him to come to him to help, but Eric says that he tried to live the life Charles wanted him to live, but the world couldn't leave him alone, and it has now taken everything from him, and Charles senses another presence near Eric. Apocalypse senses Charles' powers and takes control of him. He can connect himself with anything he wants and detonates all of the nuclear weapons. Charles asks Alex to destroy Cerebro to stop Apocalypse. As they leave, Apocalypse teleports to their location and takes Charles with him. A desperate Alex tries to save his friend, but ends up blowing up Hank's machines. Quicksilver makes a dramatic entry and saves everyone without anybody getting hurt. Scott, Nightcrawler, Jean, and another student return to the school only to find it in ruins. When Scott looks for his brother, Hank tells him that he was closest to the blast and that he couldn't be saved. Scott mourns in a distance and Jean and Nightcrawler comfort him. A helicopter descends on the school grounds claiming to have come in for medical assistance. Moira approaches them thinking they are part of another agency until the leader steps out and removes his mask. It's William Stryker. His men fire a sonic blast that incapacitates everyone except Scott, Jean, and Nightcrawler. Jean manages to keep them hidden by manipulating the mind of one of Stryker's men while Stryker takes Raven, Hank, Peter, and Moira to prison. Scott asks Nightcrawler to sneak all of them inside the chopper, and Jean keeps all of them safe. When they make it inside the chopper, an electrical field nullifies all of their powers, keeping them trapped. Stryker takes the mutants to his facility and throws Raven, Hank, Moira, and Peter into a cell. When the four try to negotiate and warn him about Apocalypse, he simply rejects their proposal and goes away. Meanwhile, Apocalypse brings his followers and Charles to his old home and orders Charles to deliver a message to everyone on the planet, but he refuses to do so and tells him that he couldn't do it without Cerebro. But Apocalypse tells him that he doesn't need any machine when he has him. In the cell, Peter asks Raven about Eric being a bad guy and confesses that he is Peter's father. Suddenly, everyone across the globe can hear Charles's message that he is sending using Apocalypse's help, and secretly sends a message that only Jean could listen to. Scott, Jean, and Nightcrawler make their way into the generator room, but hear something growling locked up, which Scott remarks to be an animal, and Jean dismisses his idea by saying that it is a man. As the guards approach the generator room, Jean unlocks the chamber, and the man is revealed to be Wolverine. He brutally murders every soldier who comes in sight until he reaches the exit, and the three follow his trail. Jean stops Wolverine and gently removes his brainwashing mechanism. She taps into his mind and gives him back the memories that she can read. Without a word, Wolverine retreats outside. The three then reach the cell, and Scott blasts the cell door open to release Moira and the mutants, and they head towards Charles' location. Apocalypse rebuilds his pyramid by ruining everything and asks Magneto to cause global destruction. When Charles asks about his role, Apocalypse says that he has the most important one. Raven and the others have now arrived. They decide that Raven and Peter will handle Eric. At the same time, the rest of them will focus on getting Charles back from the pyramid. On the other hand, Apocalypse asks his horsemen to prepare for war and prevent anyone from coming inside until the transference is complete. Hank and the three newbies catch Angel off guard, and Nightcrawler sneaks inside the pyramid with Angel turning towards him. When the other three try to get inside, they face Storm and Psylocke. After a fierce rematch with Angel, Nightcrawler gets inside again to find Charles, but the others struggle hard to fight off the horsemen. Raven tells Eric that he has more family and that it's not yet over for him, and Peter tries to confess that he is his son, but is unable to do so. Nightcrawler rescues Charles just before the transference is complete and brings back everyone to the plane one by one. They try to escape, but Angel and Psylocke destroy their plane, forcing Nightcrawler to teleport the crew somewhere safe. Apocalypse regains consciousness and calls Charles desperately. Peter at first lands some punches on Apocalypse using his speed, but is locked into the ground. Raven tries to rescue him, but she fails, and Apocalypse calls Charles to help his friends. Charles remembers that he is somewhat connected to him and gets into his mind, but this doesn't work, and Apocalypse takes advantage of it to know Charles' location. As he marches towards him, Magneto betrays him and stops him from reaching Charles and the others, helping him in doing so, but are unmatched by his strength. Charles asks Jean to help him and asks her to unleash her true self. Jean overwhelms Apocalypse, and as everyone's combined efforts weaken him, he tries to escape but is stopped by Storm. He finally disintegrates, saying that all is revealed. Jean helps Charles regain his consciousness, and he gives Moira back her memories to make her remember their past. Everyone returns home. Eric and Jean help in rebuilding the school, and Monroe asks Peter about confessing his relationships to Eric, and he replies that one day he will, but for now, he'll just stick with them. Charles tries to convince Eric to stay, but Eric bids him farewell, wishing him good luck for his future ventures. Raven prepares the new members of the X-Men, and Hank lets out the robots to train with. That was my recap of the movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Now comment on what your favorite part was, and make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, this has been Total Recap.